Social media has made some of y'all feel way too comfortable being disrespectful without the fear of getting punched in the face for it. Mike Tyson said that a few years ago. And this week's question of the week here at Semper Fortis is we're going to talk about trolls. I'm al-Aziz, the owner and head instructor of Semper Fortis jiu-jitsu here in San Antonio, Texas. And this week we're going to talk about trolls and not allowing social media to adversely affect you in your mental health. So when I look at social media, and whether that's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, people get really worked up on just comments that are made. And they're often comments that are made by anonymous people or people that are far, far away from you that you will never meet, never interact with. And they're the opinions of people that, they could say something bad to you, but they're the opinions of people that you would never go to for advice. So I don't accept insults from people that I would never seek advice from. So yeah, it's nice that you disagree with me. Have a great day. But I see these trolls. And if you're running a social media, like I run a social media, the account for our Instagram, for our business, for Facebook, of course this YouTube channel, and everybody gets their trolls. I get trolls all the time. They make little comments below. Oh, this would never work in a street fight. Every once in a while I'll be like, well, how many street fights have you been in? What's that got to do with anything? Well, trying to establish a baseline of your expertise of what would and what would not work in a street fight. But you're going to get trolls like that. Like this young man, Dakota Meyer, he said something on his YouTube channel, or maybe it was, one of the other social media platforms, and he was talking about, people dressing up all tactical, pretending to be military when they never actually served in the military. And he's like, don't try to pretend like you're something you're not. And man, the hate that Dakota got for this just blew me away. And for those of you that don't know Dakota Meyer, he was a United States Marine, multiple tours of combat, and he was awarded the Medal of Honor, which is the highest award you can get in the military. And it's our highest award for valor. And it's such an uncommon award that most people that are awarded the Medal of Honor die in the process of doing whatever warranted the Medal of Honor. Like they're awarded posthumously. It's an incredibly rare award to receive, and Dakota received this. And so he made this comment, about tactical gear, and I don't know the context. I didn't watch his podcast, and just the hate and the feedback he received. And I'm like, really? For me, I've been in combat. I was in the military for 33 years, but I just don't engage in arguments with people that have been awarded the Medal of Honor, because I'm like, dude, what you did was amazing, and I got nothing to say. But man, the people that fired on Dakota, and I saw comments, people who had never served in the military making cartoon comics of him, just saying really mean-spirited things. And then I saw one comment, it was like, you're just lucky that the civilians, the armed civilians you faced in Iraq weren't well trained like the armed civilians in the United States, because you wouldn't do so well. And I'm like, that is a bold thing for somebody who has never served in combat to say to a war veteran who received the Medal of Honor. Oh my gosh. And of course, people are saying this anonymously, or, they're far away from Dakota. They would never say this in person. Another guy I've trained with, Mike Glover, he runs Fieldcraft Survival. He's retired Green Beret, and he was showing CQB how to clear a building, and people were making comments, oh, that would never work in combat. It's like, what? He's a retired Green Beret. What is your experience level to say that would never work in combat? But man, on social media, people do. And people say stuff on social media that they would never in their wildest dreams ever think of saying in person. Or a friend of mine runs a bearded YouTube channel, Daniel Command. He calls himself Dan C. Bearded. Wonderful place for advice on beard care. There was some dude in Kentucky who has got a small YouTube channel, and to try to make a name for himself, he just started making negative videos about Dan, and then started tagging him in all of his other videos, and it kept showing up on my news feed. I'm like, who is this guy, and why is he saying these bad things about Dan? And Dan is like a genuinely nice man who just has dedicated his life to helping people, and he shares a lot of beard information, and I've learned a lot from Dan, just watching his channel, because like I did 33 years in the Navy, so I wasn't able to grow a beard because of my duties. And once I got out, I was like, I'm going to grow one, and I was like, man, let me get some information. And I got lucky enough to find Dan's channel, and I learned from him. But people will make comments to him that are just horrible, and it's like, and I think he's got like 80,000 subscribers, so he's a pretty big channel. But it's like people, when you're on top or you're having success, man, people want to take pot shots at you. And I really look at it, or even like Joe Rogan, like, oh my gosh, like Joe had mentioned in a podcast that he don't even read his comments anymore. And, I looked down after he said that, at some of the comments, and I'm like, oh my gosh, for your mental health, I wouldn't read this trash either. And it's like, one, people say stuff like that because, one, they're anonymous, and there's no chance of them ever coming face to face with you to have to answer for what they said. So they say ridiculous things. And, it's almost like road rage when people are in cars. Like people will act in their cars driving up and down the street in a way that they would never act in person. Like, if somebody gets cut off on the road, man, they will lose their minds. Like I've been in cars where, a friend of mine has been driving, who's one of the nicest, kindest, soft-spoken people you ever meet, and somebody will cut him off. And man, the profanity, the hate that's just rolling out of his mouth, and the anger. And it's like, dude, like it's not that deep. It just let it go. But they get inside their little box, and they just, whether they feel invincible or they just feel like, man, I don't know. I don't really understand the psychology, but I think it goes back to what Mike Tyson said. People have become so comfortable being disrespectful on social media without the fear of being punched in the face. Because I can tell you, this same friend, if he was walking in Walmart and somebody cut him off with their cart, as he was going down an aisle, and they just got in his way, he wouldn't react the same. He'd just be like, oh yeah, it's no problem. But in the car, it's like, oh man, this is ridiculous. And like he'd be ready to pull over the side of the road and fight him for it. So it's a weird phenomenon, social media, and to me, it's like people in cars. They act in a way that they would not act in person. And so, I would tell anybody that's on social media, like, don't take it so serious. Which may sound weird coming from somebody who's talking on social media, because I run these social media accounts for my business. But man, you can't take it so serious, because whether it's the likes or the comments, especially the anonymous comments, like you can't put no weight into this. And that's whether the comment is good or bad. Like, of course you'd like everybody to be happy with the things that you say, or your philosophies, or your techniques, or whatever you're teaching. But some people are just going to be mean and spiteful and say hateful things, and you just can't get wrapped up into it. So just realize, if you're on social media, you're going to have to deal with trolls, and just let it go. It's just not worth it. And it's not worth your mental health to get wrapped up in these individuals who, definitely have some kind of deep-seated issues on why they're so negative and hateful on social media. And it's like, man, I feel bad for them that they have such a burden to deal with, that they have to, their only way to vent is to go onto social media and just say horrible, hateful things that they would never dare say in person. So that's my answer to this week's question of the week. Got a question for next week, feel free to comment below. Or how you deal with trolls, unless you deal with them by tracking them down because you have a unique set of skills, that you track these guys down. You don't need to share that. But, like, be interested in your comments and your feedback. And if you got a question for next week, fire below. And until next week, ciao.